Language is a foundational aspect of culture. Hawaiian language is a Polynesian-based language that is slowly dying due to the decrease of native Hawaiians. Hawaiian language shows all 5 properties of language. First, multimedia ability. Hawaiian language has written language, spoken language, songs, and dance. Hawaiian language is discrete because it can be broken down into phonemes and morphemes. Sentences can be broken up into words, words can be broken into syllables, syllables into letters, and letters into sounds. Hawaiian is also extremely productive because they are able to say anything and everything even though they only have a 12-letter alphabet. The 12 letters they have can be formed into an infinite amount of words and sentences with all different meanings. Displacement is a huge part of every language because it allows people to communicate about objects that are not there. For example, in Hawaiian, the sentence, "I used to live in Japan" is, well, that. And this allows them to talk about living in Japan, although neither person is currently in Japan at that time. An interesting thing about the Hawaiian language is they have something called reduplication, which is doubling a word to make a different word. For example, the word helu means count, but helu means read or read. Whereas in English, if somebody said count, people would just find it weird because the syntax needs to be the same for everyone speaking the same language. Next, Hawaiian language is arbitrary, meaning that it is random symbols with no link to one another. For a language to be arbitrary, it must be agreed on, learned, shared, and random. Hawaiian language is arbitrary because it is taught by families and teachers, learned by students and children, and lastly, it's random because the symbols of the Hawaiian language mean nothing without the grammatical rules shared by the culture. As an example, as seen in Lilo and Stitch, as I'm sure most of you guys have seen, ohana means family, and family means no one gets left behind or forgotten. This is arbitrary because it is a random word given a shared meaning, and it is learned by all Hawaiians.
Hawaiians are known very well for their values and importance of marriage within their culture. Marriage is a socially approved sexual and economic union between at least one man and at least one woman. The Hawaiian marriage fits this definition and has many elements to it. The types of marriage that are seen in Hawaii are monogamy, which is one man with one woman, and polygyny, which is one man with multiple wives. Monogamy is more common because it is the simplest form of marriage and it manages to fit all of their needs when in a married relationship and when starting a family, where polygyny is seen very rarely and is typically only used by wealthy people or people of very high status. The functions of marriage that are demonstrated and are important in a stable and successful relationship are division of labor by sex, enculturation of the young, establishing relations, and sexual rights and obligations. Hawaiian marriage systems satisfy all these functions for their people. With division of labor, the labor being divided between the spouses is generally split equally between both parents, yet the traditional distribution is stereotypical to gender. The responsibility of providing for and protecting the family falls to the males, while the household chores and raising the children fall to the women. With sexual rights and obligations, it is essential for both people in the marriage to be able to have children to start large extended families. Although this is wanted, there are no strict rules when determining what the man and woman are obligated to doing in the relationship. With enculturation of the young, the responsibility of raising a child is put on both of the parents, but the mother usually has the biggest burden, especially when first raising it. Even though the mother is necessary when first feeding newborns, they tend to spend the most time with them as they grow up because of the common role of the stay-home mom found in Hawaii. One of the most important functions is establishing relations because when looking for a spouse, a major factor that is considered is who the future in-laws will be for the sake of extended families and connecting ties. When determining who their future spouse might be, there are a lot of important factors that are essential for their decision. Although secondary factors like personality and looks are very important when exploring for a spouse, primary factors override the decision. The most important factor is location because the Hawaiian people generally like to live in the same area as their existing family. Other factors like age, religion, and gender are also important when considering a spouse. A popular way to find a spouse is through arranged marriages, which are used a lot for family purposes. A major element for the decision is who the future in-laws will be, which is the reason for the type of marriage setup. The perfect spouse and perfect family are key factors when making decisions in an arranged marriage. Lastly, getting married also involves an economic exchange between the husband's and wife's families, which are given both ways. Common gifts that are exchanged are pearls, feathers, or any other valuable gifts. Similar gifts are exchanged by both families, and this symbolizes a united marriage. Although there is no official name for the economic exchange, there is still one present that popularly occurs when people get married. Marriage is a very important custom in the Hawaiian culture because it unites families, bonds tribes, and helps keep the population growing. When knowing what their family lifestyle is like, it is easy to conclude that marriage plays a large role within their family structure.
While we have been studying family, we defined it as a social and economic unit consisting of at least one parent and their kids. The Hawaiians lived in an extended family which consists of many nuclear families linked by blood ties living together. Families in the Hawaiian culture were very big and often lived under the same roof. The word ohana is one of the most important groups in the Hawaiian society. We can translate the word ohana to mean family. However, in ancient Hawaii, the ohana was more than just the immediate family members. It was also the extended family, which was made up of grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, and even those who had already died. It was common for grandparents to adopt and raise children as their own. This practice can also be seen as an incompatible activity requirement, which is when grandma and grandpa watch the kids while the parents are at work. Without the concept of ohana, a person would not be able to survive on a small island in the Pacific. It took the joint effort of many people in the family to be able to survive in these tough living conditions. The Hawaiian kinship terminology is the simplest because it uses the fewest terms. The term mother is extended to include Ego's mother's sister and Ego's father's sister. Father is extended to include father's brothers and mother's brothers. In Ego's own generation, everyone is called either brother or sister. Even though the Hawaiians do not use words such as uncle, aunt, or cousin, this does not mean that the individuals are not able to tell the difference between their biological parents and their own relatives in their parents' generation. The Hawaiian kinship is often called a generation system because only the generation of the term's referent is relevant. The Hawaiian society belongs to bilateral descent. Bilateral descent is two-sided, so it is your mom's and dad's side of the family. Neither side is important to society, but is ego-centered around the individual. In bilateral kinship, everyone basically belongs to a lot of groups because everyone is able to join groups that their parents belong to. This system is adaptive in the Hawaiian culture because it allows people in your kindred rights to agricultural land, house sites, and other types of property. The type of locality that applies to the Hawaiian culture is patrilocal and matrilocal. This system is adapted in the Hawaiian family because if your husband's family is wealthy, then you are more likely to live with them than your wife's family. There are 4 functions that a family must fulfill. These functions are division labor between family members, establishing rules of descent, enculturation, and sexual reproduction and rights over children. In the Hawaiian culture, all family members are expected to work together for the welfare of the whole family. The first function, division of labor, is when the roles for men and women are demonstrated at an early age so children understand the labor they are supposed to fulfill. Family members are expected and need to do the set jobs that they have because without division of labor in this society, it would be very difficult to survive. The next function, establishing rules of descent, talks about what happens when you have a child that is a boy or a girl. So let's say that if the first child was a boy, it would be taken by the father's parents and raised by them and the father's siblings. But if the first child was a girl, it was raised by the mother's parents and her extended family. This is an example of establishing rules of descent because the first son is being raised by the father's parents and siblings, and the first daughter is being raised by the mother's parents and siblings. Having an extended family in their culture is adapted because, for example, if your mother did not finish high school, but your mother's sister did, your mother's sister will be responsible for your education because she made it through. Then your mother's sister will help you to be educated so that you, in turn, could help yourself. This is an example of enculturation because your mother's sister is the one that is enculturating you to become educated, so in the long run, it will help you to get a job. In the Hawaiian culture, each family member is taught how to help one another. If one family member is struggling or cannot provide for a specific task, that will help to enculturate the child. The last function of family, which is sexual reproductions and rights over children, talks about how in modern society, the importance of family seems to have lost much of its significance among the native population. In 2004, the number of children born to unwed mothers was significantly higher among the native Hawaiian population than that of other ethnic groups. This is an example of sexual reproduction and rights over children, which demonstrates what a matrifocal family type is. A matrifocal family is a single mother who raises her children on her own. This has become more common today for many reasons, such as divorce is higher, premarital sex is more common, and there is less gender stratification. Family impacts the Hawaiian culture in many different ways, such as living in an extended family, following the Kanaitic rules of descent system, and living in a patrilocal and matrilocal post-residence system. We also know how the Hawaiian family is unique due to their kinship terminology because it is the simplest one that uses the fewest terms. Now we will go into further detail about religion in the Hawaiian culture.
The Hawaiians have a deeply rooted and extremely strong belief in their religion. Religion can be defined as a belief system containing myths and stories of supernatural powers that help explain why society does what it does. The main aspect of the definition is the belief in the supernatural. The Hawaiians show their belief in the supernatural through their belief in deities or gods, who they believe have mana. They have four main gods and one major goddess. The first god is Kalona, the god of squid and healing. The next being Cain, Kalona's older brother, being the most approachable, forgiving, and reserved of the gods. He also represents fresh water, wind, and rain clouds. The next is Lono, the god of peace, seasonal winter storms, and also healing. Then there are the Ku gods, who are actually a class of contained gods that represent the eastern sunrise and are the gods of war, fishing, and forests. This leaves the single goddess Pele. She is the goddess of volcanoes and is said to look like a beautiful woman, but is known to show her wrath when crossed. Not only do Hawaiians believe in the gods, but they also worship their ancestors and ask them for guidance. To them, this is known as animakua. This shows that the Hawaiians practice an animistic religion. The Hawaiians also believe in animatism. This is shown in their system of kapu, which is their term for taboo. To them, kapu is a set of regulations that govern their human behavior. The most common example of kapu is that the sexes used to be separated when eating. This leads us right into the myths of the Hawaiian religion and why the kapu system is present. The kapu system was formed when Wakia, the Sky Father, left his wife, Papa, the Earth Mother, and continued to seduce their daughter. A shaman then declared that the gods had tabooed the nights when the husband and wife were required to separate, this being the beginning of the extreme kapu system. The Hawaiians also practice all 6 types of rituals, being physiological trances, sacred meals, all types of prayer, non-ecstatic divination, magic only when dealing with sorcery, and sacrifices and offerings. The Hawaiians used to have heiaus, or places of worship, built by chiefs, which would then be called sacred lukanis. And inside these lukanis, human sacrifices were burned and were offered to the highest of Ku gods. The Hawaiian religion also covers the social function and component of religion. It does this by bringing people together with the same beliefs in the houses of worship known as huena, so they feel accepted in society. But it also sets status for the people who practice the religion. For example, the kahunas or priests have the highest status within the society, then chiefs, shaman, and so on, creating a specific status for all of those who are interactive within the religion. The Hawaiian religion also covers the intellectual function of religion. It does this by explaining nature and the weather and patterns that the Hawaiians couldn't understand, by saying that their gods controlled the weather. So for example, if a volcano were to erupt suddenly, it was because Pele was angry with someone and wanted to create chaos in their life. The last function the Hawaiian religion fulfills is the psychological one. It does this through comforting its followers through stressful and anxious times. An example would be if a follower were to break one of the sacred rules of kapu. They would then pray to Cain, asking for forgiveness, relieving them of their anxieties in hopes that Cain will forgive them. Overall, the Hawaiian religion helps shape how Hawaiians think, what they do in their daily lives, their values, and the gods they worship, showing just how complex the religion is with the many factors that come together to create it.